what yoga does is it helps enrich our lives in every single aspect, in everything that we do. But you'll really get this experience of being in the room with me. After you complete the program, I will be there to support you for a lifetime. It will make you just an amazingly phenomenal teacher that everyone wants to have in their studio and as their teacher. Hey there, friends, and welcome. I'm always talking about the transformational power of the yoga practice, and now I am so incredibly excited to be able to bring the teachings of yoga to you in a 200-hour format, but completely online, to your computer, to your living room, maybe even to your bedroom or to your bathtub if you want. You can literally take this yoga teacher training anywhere that you are now in the world. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about is how this teacher training stands apart from all the other hundreds of yoga teacher training programs that are out there. And I think really what makes this training stand out and turns it into kind of like a gold star training rather than just a general cut-of-the-mill training is the focus and the time that I spend in trying to convey this aspect of the transformational power of yoga and the richness of the actual heart of what yoga is. It's not a superficial practice in any way, and it's not just about the body. So what yoga does is it helps enrich our lives in every single aspect, in everything that we do. It really, once you understand the teachings and you understand who you are on a really deep level, then the concepts and the ideas behind yoga, they start to seep into you until your entire life becomes something that's vibrant and beautiful and radiant and purposeful and has so much meaning and so much potential for beauty. And this is what yoga is all about. And then another thing that I think that really makes this training stand apart from other trainings is the fact that I am a huge nerd. And there's nothing that I love more than to study the science and really the anatomy behind the practice. So what's going on in our body, what's going on in our bones and our muscles and in our joints in order for us to be able to do these amazing poses. What happens with the physiology of the body? So how do the yoga poses affect how our body functions? And then what's the latest science and research behind the asana practice? So if we look at everyone's body as being exactly the same as a skeleton, like a model skeleton or a picture in an anatomy book, well, this is one way to view the yoga practice. But of course, we can see from just walking down the street that every single person looks so different on the outside, and the same is true on the inside as well. And these individualities affect our yoga practice, and they affect the way that we do certain poses and what our strengths are in the practice and what our weaknesses are in the practice. And this training is all about helping you understand at a very individual and personal level what is happening in your physical body, in your personal yoga practice that maybe makes certain things very easy for you, like forward folds or hip openers or maybe arm balances. And then what makes other poses maybe a little bit more challenging for you. It could be due to lack of strength or flexibility, of course, but there's so many more factors that we can think about as yogis and as yoga teachers that really have a huge impact on the way that we practice our asana. I've gathered all of this information, and then I'm going to give it to you step by step in this training in a way that I think is really relatable and practical and understandable for you so that you can experience this kind of cutting edge research on the body and on movement science in your own personal practice and in your own body as well. So I think between that and this deep ingrained philosophy of the yoga practice, this is definitely what makes this training stand out more than others. In this training, you will learn 4 different styles of yoga: Hatha yoga, Vinyasa flow yoga, yin yoga, and to a lesser degree, restorative yoga. So let's break each of these styles down one by one. Hatha yoga is basically just any physical practice of yoga. So we could do asana practice, we could have breath work, we could have meditation, we could have energy work. And really, Hatha yoga in a more modern yoga studio context is more of a static practice in that we move from one pose into a pose that could be completely different from the one before it in a way that isn't so dance-like. And then we hold the poses for a little bit longer in order to understand our personal alignment in the pose, as well as the energetics of the pose. So what are all the little subtleties that we can do with our body, and how can we engage our muscles and activate in the pose in order to bring about the best possible results from the pose into our body and into our breath and into our minds. And then we have Vinyasa flow yoga, which is very dance-like. It's a little bit meditative in the fact that it is so smooth that you go from one thing to the next without really even realizing what you're doing. So there's a big focus on the breath and how we can move with the breath in order to just flow very freely on the mat. It's very creative, it's lots of fun, it's really funky, and it's also usually a very powerful practice. So we have lots of arm balances and inversions thrown in. We have some stronger poses that require a lot of flexibility in the hips and in the hamstrings. And really, Vinyasa flow is just known for being kind of young and fresh and a very funky style of yoga. The third style of yoga that we're going to learn, to practice, and to teach is yin yoga. And I love, love, love yin yoga. It's all about finding this balance between our very busy and fast-paced lives, and then countering that with slowness and stillness and silence. And in the yin yoga practice, we spend most of the time on the mat, so very, very low to the ground, doing poses like hip openers, hamstring openers, and twists. And in the yin practice, we hold the poses for quite a long time. So it's anywhere from 30 seconds all the way up to like 10 or 15 minutes. And in this way, we create some passive flexibility in the body. And in the yin practice, as opposed to the hatha practice or the vinyasa practice, we're actually targeting not the muscles, but the connective tissues of the body. So these are the joints, it's the tendons, it's the ligaments, it's the fascia, and it's also the bones. And what we're really trying to do is work with not only these connective tissues, but how do the poses affect the organs of the body? Because yin yoga is based on the ancient system of Chinese medicine and the meridians, where every point in the body corresponds to a point inside the body. So we have certain parts of the leg that correspond to certain organs in the body. And the poses that we can do in the yin yoga practice can help improve the function of the kidneys or the liver or the heart or the lungs, for example. And with the yin yoga practice, there's a lot of this aspect of meditation. So we get into a pose, whether it's a really easy pose that we love or if it's a more challenging pose, and we hold it for a long time. And we see the effect of the breath on the mind. And we see the effect of challenge in the body on the mind. And we can kind of step back and take this perspective of the observer. So what happens to my mind in this practice? And in this way, the yin practice is so beautiful because it is really like meditation, but where we're also getting a huge benefit to the body at the same time. And then the fourth style of yoga that we are going to focus on is restorative yoga. And this style of yoga is really amazing if you're going through any really big life changes, or if you're just overwhelmed and stressed out. Restorative yoga is a really beautiful way to get into some poses that help to open the body up for breath. And it's all about relaxing the nervous system. So it's less about stretching, it's less about strengthening, and it's all about just inviting breath and softness into the body and really an overwhelming sense of relaxation from head to toe. So we just let the nervous system completely chill out and unwind from our day or our past weeks or our past months or our past years, whatever it is that's kind of causing some tightness and some tension in the belly and in the mind, restorative yoga is there to just relax and take a break. So this training is kind of grouped into different categories, and we have 10 modules to combine the depth of yoga philosophy with the modern science of movement. The first module is yoga practice. So these are basically the yoga classes that we do together. Then we've got asana labs. We've got the anatomy of yoga. We've got how to teach yoga and philosophy and history of yoga. And these 5 are the core modules of the program, and they make up about 3/4 of the 200 hours. Then we've got complementary modules on the subtle body, meditation, breathwork, personal growth, and the business of yoga. In each module, we go in depth into practices, theories, and techniques that help us explore the incredibly diverse aspects of yoga. We've already covered the 4 styles of yoga that we will learn to practice and teach. So let's look at the other core modules. The asana labs are a series of workshops where we break down every single pose that you'll see in your manual, step by step, and we look at what's happening in the body, what movements is the body taking to get into this pose, what could be limiting our body from getting into this pose in a really nice way or an easeful way, and what are some ways that if this pose doesn't feel amazing, how can we modify by using props or by taking different versions of the pose? And then also, how can we get really creative with this pose and maybe add some extra elements to it to spice it up? Then we have anatomy. So within the anatomy classes, we're going to be learning all about the muscles and the bones and the joints and the ligaments and everything that comprises the human body. But not just that. We're going to actually look at how the yoga practice affects the human body and really break down how can anatomy play an integral role in our yoga practice, and how do these two things relate together. So many yoga teacher training programs just teach anatomy without connecting it to yoga, and I just find this such a pity, because we should be learning anatomy from the perspective and the vantage point of a yoga teacher and how this applies to the practice. So this is what we do in my training. We're really just going to break down what is this part of the body and what do we do with it in the yoga practice, and why is it important to understand this part of the body, and which structures do we use in the yoga practice a lot, and in what ways are we using these structures. And then the next umbrella big category that we have is taking the seat of the teacher. And what this means is how to organize your classes and how to hold space as a yoga teacher so that all of your students, when they come to your class, feel safe, they feel supported, they feel heard, and they feel seen. How to observe your students in their practice and then be able to adjust what you're saying, what you're cueing, and maybe how you're touching them or moving them in order to best fit what they need in their practice and in their body on that day. Also, we're going to talk about how to create sequences and how to use the themes of yoga philosophy, if you'd like, maybe yoga history, if you'd like, or any other theme that you can think of, and weave it into your classes and into your practice so that you can bring these 2 powerful aspects of yoga, which is the physical practice and this kind of mental and philosophical and psychological practice, into one cohesive unit that is so powerful and so transformative. And if you can manage to do this, this will make you just an amazingly phenomenal teacher that everyone wants to have in their studio and as their teacher. The next kind of big category to talk about is philosophy and yoga history. And this for me is like really where my heart lies. I love learning about anatomy. I love talking about anatomy, but for me, the teachings and the philosophy and the history and the depth of yoga, I hope really shines through in this training. And I think every single person who has really dug deep into their yoga and done the hard work of studying the teachings behind this practice that we do on the mat has really found a positive benefit, and it's had a huge impact on their lives for the better. Always, 100% is for the better. And really what we're going to do is look at the history of yoga. Where does it come from? What does it mean? Who were the people that discovered or created this practice, and why? And then we're going to move into the specific teachings of the philosophy. So different textbooks, different kind of scriptural books, and what are the teachings that these ancient teachers wanted to convey to their students. But also, these teachings and this wisdom is timeless. So how can we apply this beauty and this really amazing way to view the world to our modern life and our modern world today? So these were the 5 core modules of the training. And we'll also spend plenty of time learning about the subtle body, which is where our invisible but highly powerful energy lives, as well as practicing and learning the theory behind 16 meditation and 12 breathwork practices. Whether it's clear from the start or not, the entire practice of yoga was created for the purpose of self-realization, figuring out who you are. What is your true nature? Who are you deep, deep down inside? We can start to answer this question by practicing asana as well as breathwork and meditation. And another powerful way is by doing exercises from the field of coaching. That's why I included the personal growth track. So this training will not just be a yoga teacher training, it'll be a personal journey for growth as well. Finally, there's the business of yoga module. And it's more the nuts and bolts of how to set yourself up as a yoga teacher and turn this into your career. And I think this is really vital, because if we have all of the teachings and if we are an amazing teacher, but we lack the skills and the know-how of turning our teachings into a business that can actually support our lifestyle, then it's kind of pointless, right? Or it's a little bit of a waste. So if your goal is to become a yoga teacher after this training, and not everyone's goal is that, so that's also totally fine, but we will take some time in this training to really look at what do I need to do in order to put myself out there as a yoga teacher who can thrive and create the lifestyle that you want to lead. This program is divided into 4 different formats. What I didn't want to do with this training, I'll just start with that, is to create an entire training on Zoom, right? Where we all have to sit there in front of the computer 8 hours a day together at the same schedule at the same time. Even if some person's internet was cutting out at one point and it was dark over here in this person's house and over here it's light, I just wanted to avoid all of that kind of internet trouble, right? And give you different formats that would work so that you can take this training at the schedule and the time and the place that works best for you. So with that in mind, the majority of this training is pre-filmed videos, and those you can watch at any time and on any device. The second format is podcast. The program includes more than 25 hours of audio lectures and practices that you'll be able to download onto your phone and take with you wherever you go. So this adds another element of flexibility and convenience to your training experience. A third format is live interactive Zoom calls with me, where you get your questions answered and I give you feedback on all aspects of your practice. Can you say hi? Hi. And then the fourth and final aspect of the format of this training is homework. And this is actually mostly teaching practice, which is a big part of becoming a yoga teacher, right? Is teaching and practicing your teachings so that you can then go on to share your teachings with the world later, if you so choose. So, and this stuff is helpful even if you don't want to become a yoga teacher, right? It's just about standing up and being confident, finding your power posture, and then learning how to use your voice in a way that feels authentic to you. And this translates into anything that we can do in life, whether it's teaching a yoga class or having difficult conversations with friends or family, or really any time we present ourselves to the world. We need to have these speaking skills and this confidence. And this is what the teaching practices do for you. And then besides that, we also have what are called asana selfies. And they're selfies because we don't need to be perfect. This is just for me to see if you've understood all the things that I'm teaching you in the asana labs. So these workshops on the different poses that we have. So if I give certain cues about downward facing dog and certain things to look for in your body as you practice your down dog, I'll just have you snap a quick picture of that and then upload it to me so that I can see what's going on in your practice. And this is also a really awesome and personal way for you to ask me any questions that you have, like, how does my down dog look to you? Because a big part of the yoga teacher training experience is that people want help with their asana practice. And they want to know, am I doing this pose right? And then I would say the answer is always, is it right for your body? And then we look at your body and we look at the pose and then we see what's working and where you're maybe having some difficulty. For me, one of the coolest aspects of this training is that even though it's online, I am going to ship a paper training manual to your front door. And I think this is really important to have something physical and something tangible to hold on to that makes this training more real, right? So it's not just kind of out there in space, but you've got your paper manual and it's thick and it's heavy and you can take all of your notes in there and draw all of your little pictures and do whatever you'd like to do in your manual, and then you have it for life. So we've spent a lot of time making this manual into a piece of art, and I am so excited to send it out to every single student who takes part in this training. I think it's beautiful. I think it is incredibly helpful. And yeah, I'm excited to ship it to you if you decide to take this course. All right, so let's talk now about graduation. So what happens is that once you have completed every single class and you've sent me all of your teaching practices and all of your asana selfies and also completed your final exam and teaching practice, once all of that stuff is taken care of, then you will be able to graduate. And I will print up a certificate specifically for you with your name handwritten on it and ship it to your door so that you have something to put on your wall in a frame and really be proud of yourself for completing this process. Since 2009, my mom. There's so many. I think I'm gonna say the Amalfi Coast in Italy, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea from 1,000 meters above sea level. Oh. Pigeon. Traveling and exploring new cultures. Oh. Sushi, pad thai, pizza, and butter. That's a hard one, but I'm gonna say Swami Vivekananda.